Love your football? Coach's Corner starts now.
Welcome to Coach's Corner. I'm John Anderson, and what a great show we've got for you this week. My guest is going to be Coach Joe Daniel, the assistant head coach and offensive line coach for Prince George County High School up there in the Richmond, Virginia area. And this week's topic should be of great interest. It's a real hot topic that's going on around football right now and has been for a number of years since the popularity of the zone blitz has really climbed up there. Well, we've got somebody to break it down for us here this week. Coach Daniel is going to give us a little bit of insight on how they operated up there in Virginia. This one is just too cool to miss. Coach Daniel's up next.
No one can find a lover. No one can find a lover. Left her behind her.
Improve your coaching this season with Easy Scout Professional from CompuSports. Affordable and easy to use, Easy Scout Professional lets you watch game video on your computer as you categorize offense, defense, and special teams plays. Find and review individual plays. Then pause, restart, rewind, and even watch frame by frame for fast and detailed video analysis. Scout your opponent or your own team. Identify tendencies, evaluate players and teams, and mark plays to include in cut-ups and highlights. Print tendency reports and copy cut-ups to CD, DVD, or memory stick and upload to sharing sites like YouTube. Easy Scout Pro is compatible with Windows 7, Vista, and XP and does not require an internet connection. Download the 21-day free trial now and discover how easy and affordable it can be to work with digital video today.
You are listening to Coach's Corner with John Anderson on the CompuSports Radio Network.
My guest today is the assistant head coach of the football team for Prince George County High School in Richmond, Virginia, and he also coaches linebackers in the offensive line. That's a heck of a combination. He's got a couple of websites, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. Please welcome Coach Joe Daniel to Coach's Corner. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's a privilege to have you on here, especially looking over some of your sites and some of the aspects of your sites, which we'll be getting into here during the program. Coach, tell us a little bit about your background here.
Well, I've been coaching now for 10 years, mostly in Prince George County. Spent my first year in Smithfield, Virginia, and then spent 6 years in Prince George. Was defensive coordinator there for 2 years, and then went out to Ellsworth College, a junior college out in Iowa, where I coached linebackers out there for a year, kind of trying to see if I wanted to live the dream and be in the college game, and came back after a year, wasn't what I wanted to do, and got back in at Prince George County, luckily. I've been there for the last 2 years. I've coached a little bit of everything, every position defensively, been a defensive coordinator, been an offensive line coach, been a quarterback's coach briefly, however unsuccessfully. So I've done a little bit of everything as far as coaching, and just love doing it, love spending my time doing it, probably a little too much, but really enjoy it.
First of all, you wanted to talk about defensing the spread, and that's a real hot topic right now. People are looking at how to slow down different things that teams are doing, spreading out the field, and moving people all over the place, and got people in motion here and there, moving offensive linemen. I mean, just all sorts of things going on that teams who have got a little bit of experience with the spread are throwing at you. What is the first thing you do as a defensive coordinator when you look at a team that is running the spread offense?
Well, the first thing when you look at the spread offense is you have to decide what type of spread offense they are. The spread offense is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but it doesn't tell you anything. To say that somebody is in a spread, all that tells you is that they're going to try to use the entire field, sideline to sideline. Maybe they're going to try to take vertical shots down the field. Maybe they aren't. You've got to look into the style of offense. So everything from a spread team who's going to put the ball in the air 90% of the time to a spread team who's hardly ever going to throw the football and maybe only has a short three-step quick game and nothing else as far as passing. The first thing that we need to do is identify what it is that they want to do, what it is that they're trying to do. And in high school, I think one of the first things we have to do is identify who they want to do it with, because we have such a discrepancy between the levels of our players. Some kids are Division I players, some kids are Division III players, some kids are not college talent at all. And we need to identify who it is that we need to defend. We need to identify how they're going to try to get the ball to that person or to their best players.
Now, we all know from the last, 15 years or so, the teams have been throwing spreads out there, that there, as you said, there are different type offenses out there in a spread. It could be a team that runs power a lot, and they're just looking for different ways to do it. It could be a team that runs the read option, and their marquee play is the read option. There are teams that like to throw the pro passing game out of the spread, or maybe the wing tee. So there's a lot of different things that you can do out of the spread depending upon what your scheme is offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. We are fortunate enough that we are or have been a zone read team, so we probably see that more than anything else. The zone read spread teams, I think, are the most common. We see some air raid teams who are still running a little zone read, but their basis is in spreading the ball around in the air. But we see a lot of zone read teams, and we are a zone read team, so that helps us at least identifying those teams.
Coach Daniel owns GridironChat.com, but the one we're going to focus on today is football-defense.com. He's got a lot of great articles on there as far as different defenses, whether it be 3-3-5, 4-2-5, 4-3. He's got zone blitz articles up there, and including a couple of videos that he has put together, including running the double eagle defense or the desert swarm, which I thought was interesting yesterday when I went and started poking around your sites. With the personnel that you have available to you right now, what do you think is your best defensive formation just to start with against a spread team?
We are going to be a 4-3 team. We're going to be based out of a 4-3 defense. Like you said, I've run a 3-3-5. I've been in a 4-2-5 system. We even were a 3-4 for a game at one time and kind of got out of it. So, but always come back around to the 4-3, and I just see it as the most adaptable, versatile defense that there is. I think that the only thing you really have to have in order to make yourself a 4-3 defense is that Mike linebacker, the middle linebacker, and we have a really good one right now, and a couple of safeties who will be aggressive. They don't have to be fantastic. I guess they have to be good, solid tacklers, but they don't have to be the guys that are going to light people up all the time. It's nice to have. It's kind of an intimidation factor, but they need to be good, sound tacklers at your two safety positions. But as far as getting the most speed on the field, I know people talk about the 3-5. You can get more speed guys on the field. I feel like with the 4-3, we're more versatile. We're more able to get speed on the field with that, and that's what our personnel fit.
My guest is Coach Joe Daniel out of Richmond, Virginia, and we're going to be talking about a little bit more about defending the spread here in our next segment. You're listening to Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network.
Easy Cut from CompuSports is a fast and enjoyable way to edit and analyze your game videos. Watch entire games on your computer, then label and index plays with a click of a mouse. Copy scenes to CD, DVD, or a memory stick, and upload to online video sharing sites like YouTube. Search and sort plays by keywords, then pause, restart, rewind, and even watch frame by frame for fast and detailed video analysis. Easy Cut is compatible with XP, Vista, and Windows 7. Download the 21-day free trial now or order on CD and discover how easy it is to start analyzing your game videos today.
Segment of Coach's Corner is sponsored by CompuSports, publisher of the Easy Cut video editing software program. Easy Cut works for any sport and starts at just $195. Easy Cut, the affordable video editing software available at CompuSports.com. Coach Joe Daniel from Richmond, Virginia is my guest. We're talking defense this week, and Coach Daniel's not really aware of the traumatic experiences I've had with certain defensive coaches, putting gravel in my coffee, turning fire hoses on us, and that sort of thing. So he's if I start doing a twitch, Coach, in the middle of the interview, don't feel bad. Tell us a little bit about your coverage packages.
Well, we're going to base out of a 4-3, and with that we're going to use primarily a quarters coverage. And it's something that picked up, actually, Shap Boyd, who has a Coach's Choice video out there that's about quarters coverage, and it was just a brilliant system that fit with what we were doing. Our quarters coverage has a series of checks that are going to really just, we can call quarters, and put the defense in the hands of our safeties who make our coverage checks. We feel like as long as our safeties understand their coverage checks, and there's not a lot of them, they may take 3 of them into a game, that we can just make a quarters call from the sideline and get into exactly what we want, no matter what the offense sends out. And it's a split field coverage where one side of the field may be running what is essentially a soft cover 2, while the other side is going to be running more of a robber concept. And it's just so adaptable and flexible and really easy for the kids to pick up. I feel like that's what we've gone with, and we just love it because we don't have to change anything.
So it could vary from game to game. You could be running a quarter, half. You could be running quarters across the board and mixing a little robber in there. It seems like you've got a number of different packages that you can bring to the table.
Right, and our safeties with the split coverage, depending on who we're playing, they could be making a check that's essentially a man coverage on one side of the field while we're running a press cover 2 on the other side of the field. And I know as being an offensive coach as well, that is really frustrating to sit there and try to tag. You can waste somebody's time on the weekend having them try to tag that in their video editing system and try to figure out what coverage you're in. So, but it's so simple for our kids to learn and to get us in the best position.
Do you feel you've got the personnel to run a lot of man coverage?
I believe that we can run man coverage, and I'm of the philosophy, and I worked for a guy named Ricky Kuhn out in Iowa at Ellsworth College, who I learned from him about press man coverage. We had never felt like Prince George has probably been known for a long time as being slower, smaller. You would never think about running man coverage there. And working out in Iowa with Coach Kuhn, basically, he was of the belief that he could run man coverage no matter what. He ran it out in out in Kansas, in the Kansas JUCOs with less talented athletes against Division I players all over the place, and had a lot of success, especially with press. So I think we can run man coverage anytime against anybody. I think anybody can, as long as they're willing to work the technique.
I have to agree with you there. I've seen folks who did not seem like they were that talented or had that much speed who could, as long as they could get their hands on the receiver coming off, and that's usually the predominant thing that they have to learn is the hand techniques, and not allow themselves to be beat off of the line of scrimmage without making contact.
Yeah, absolutely. The hardest part is the press part of it. And then the other thing that makes man coverage work is if you're going to run a press man coverage, whether it's cover 1 or cover 0, you better be getting some pressure on the quarterback pretty quick, because nobody can run man coverage if they can't get to the quarterback in 4 seconds.
You've got to force the quarterback off his spot and make him pull his eyes down, and that makes it even more effective. You can't expect somebody to run with someone for 5 and 6 seconds and not allow that receiver to make some kind of a move in order to gain separation.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with man coverage is, and we've seen it in our pattern, the quarters is a pattern reading coverage as well. So after 5 or 10 yards, it's turned into a man coverage as well. And where that coverage tends to break down is if the quarterback is able to break contain and scramble around. And what we've seen is everybody in our district, in our area, is taking their best athlete who has a decent arm and putting him at quarterback. And if that kid is allowed to run around, break contain, scramble, and his receivers know their scramble routes, eventually somebody's going to get open. That's where man or zone, it doesn't matter. That's where it's going to break down.
Is there any adaptations that you would make when you know you're going to be facing a spread team that likes to put the ball up in the air? Any particular change in priorities?
Anytime you're facing the spread, you have to make a decision of whether you're going to leave 5, 6, or 7 men in the box. Our starting point is 6, even though our base alignment, if we just taught our kids their alignment rules and sent them out against the spread team, we would be in a 4-1 box, meaning 4 down linemen, 1 middle linebacker there. And just by base alignment rules, the outside linebackers would be splitting the difference if we were facing a doubles formation. But rarely is that going to be really what we're in. If we were facing a team who was really just going to throw it, and we felt like our 5, our Mike, and our 4-down linemen could handle the run, we might do that. If we were facing a really heavy pass team. But probably what we're going to do is we're going to tend to do what we do. We're going to, which is run our quarters coverage. We're going to bring more blitzes probably to get the quarterback moving around, like you said. And we are, other than that, just going to play. We may soften up a little bit with our deep safeties. We have our alert check where if we have 2 receivers spread out, if we think that they're going to give us some vertical issues, we may loosen up that deep safety, kind of playing like a cover 2 safety. But other than that, we're going to stick to our scheme.
I know that from reading your articles, you mentioned that the middle linebacker has to really be a mentally tough guy, and probably one of the mentally toughest out of all of them.
The responsibility of making any checks, if we have any automatics, and we do like to use some automatics, again, some obvious tendencies, he's got to make any checks as far as automatics. He's got to call out down and distance, kind of remind some tendencies, and we do put that on our other linebackers as well. But the Mike has to be responsible for misalignments in the defensive line. Obviously, we're going to get on that defensive lineman for misaligning, but as the linebacker coach, the first person that I'm going to look at is the linebacker, and particularly the Mike, because he's looking up at those guys and should see that there's a problem in their line. So he's got to be involved in all of these mental parts of the game, and then in the past we haven't given him much passing responsibility. We've had a younger Mike linebacker who is now an older Mike linebacker. This year he'll have passing responsibility too. But generally his responsibility is to stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. He gets blocked. People come straight off to him. They know that he's the one that's primary there to stop the run, so he's getting hammered. You'll rarely see his zone read team step into a double. One of those guys is going to come straight off to our Mike linebacker. He's getting blocked. He's having to defeat blocks every single play, and then get up and have all those mental things that he has to do as well.
Coach Joe Daniel is my guest from Richmond, Virginia, and we're talking defense here this week on Coach's Corner here on the CompuSports Radio Network. More after this.
At CompuSportsMedia.com, our job is to make your job easier and make you a more effective coach. Improve your scouting, game planning, and video analysis with Easy Scout XP Plus and the new Video Scouting edition of Easy Scout Professional. They're powerful, flexible, and affordable, building better game plans for over 25 years. Stretch your dollars with software for scoring and statistics, practice planning, equipment management, and video editing, all from leading publishers and ready for instant download. Improve your defense with ebooks like the highly acclaimed The Master Defense and the 30-Stack Defense, a comprehensive guide to designing and installing a pressure defense. Turbocharge your offense with ebooks from Jerry Campbell, including his latest, Taking the Option Game to the Next Level, and a classic from one of the fathers of option football, Larry Beckish, The Trap Option 40 plus 60 equals Option. All the tools you need, priced right, to make this a winning season from CompuSportsMedia.com.
Segment of Coach's Corner is sponsored by CompuSports, distributor of the Playmaker Pro and Coach's Office Playbook software packages available at CompuSports.com. Joe Daniel from Richmond, Virginia is my guest. He is the assistant head coach at Prince George County High School in Virginia. He also coaches linebackers and offensive line. Coach, I had a little bit of experience in the 4-3 where we were using the old 4-3 inside, where you had a couple of 5 techniques, you had a couple of 2 techniques, and you just moved those 2 techniques around, and the middle linebacker, he had a responsibility for a different gap on each play, but he was just a mean son of a gun. I spit on the ball before the center got up there. I mean, all sorts of dirty little, just mischievous little son of a gun.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. I mean, off the field, he was just the nicest guy, but when he put that helmet on, it was just like Satan had entered his body.
Love those kids.
Oh. When you're putting your defensive line together, are you running over defense, under defense? Do you have a preference there, or do you run a multiple front?
We are a multiple front, but if we're talking spread offense, we're going to be based out of the over front. If we're going to face a power running team, we're going to get into the under front. But primarily, we'll be in the over with 3 technique strong and a 1 technique weak, and we run a weak side 5 who's going to be outside shade and can just run loose, and we're going to have a strong side 9 technique, which is different. A lot of teams don't want to run the strong 9 technique outside of the tight end if you've got one. But it's the base Miami 4-3 defense that Jimmy Johnson and his staff put together to shut down the wishbone that Barry Switzer was running out in Oklahoma. We've just adapted that. It's amazing how something that was put together to stop the wishbone has been able to adapt so easily to defend 5 wides and stuff, everything in the world. The advantage of it is that we can get a ton of speed out there. We only need 1 true defensive lineman, and that's the 3 technique. We want linebackers at our defensive end spots, and we'd like to have just a hard-nosed wrestler-type kid playing the weak side 1 technique who's just going to cause problems.
Well, of course, we all know in those over or under defenses, it's the 3 technique, which is the piston to that engine. Is there a particular reason why you like the over front against a spread team? Because that would almost seem like it defies the face of what you're trying to do with it.
As far as using the over front against a spread team, we want those, we like the defensive ends outside to be really hard pinching. We will we'll go to our G front against spread teams, especially zone read teams, which all that's going to do is move the 1 technique to a 2-eye. And the reason that we like those positions especially is we want everybody to be in an outside shade. We want them to play the same way every time. Like I said, we'll move to a 2-eye every once in a while. But for the most part, everybody is in an outside shade of their guys. They're pinching in, packing, they're getting rid of the offensive linemen, and they're forcing everything to spill outside. And while the spread is looking to spread the field, where you're going to get in the most trouble is when it gets going north and south. And when in our over front, we can force it to continue to move east and west and get out to our outside linebackers and our safety.
Do you employ a lot of movement up front, slants, twists, stunts?
Depends on the year and depends on guys up front, but we prefer to use a lot of movement. We're going to use some end tackle twists. We're going to use a lot of pinching where maybe defensive end is just going to cross face. We don't see that much of it in our area, and so when you start to run it, especially against zone blocking teams, which is the vast majority of your spread teams' run game, they're going to have some real problems in it. The one thing that has slowed down our slanting and stunning is the vertical set. The vertical set pass protection, we hadn't adapted to it yet. I think we're getting there to where we can still run our twist game against the vertical set. And we run a vertical set, and we tell our kids no twist can ever affect it, but it does if you run it right. So we've had to pull back on it until we kind of figured out how we can do it against the vertical set protection. But we do like to do a lot of movement, and then we like to use a lot of blitzes.
I know that from doing a lot of reading, since the 50s and 60s was a little bit before my time anyway. Okay, maybe it wasn't before my time. That the San Francisco 49ers had employed what they called that Zephyr offense, and all it was a shotgun. But they had some different twists in how they ran it, and they won some games, just bloodied people up, throwing the ball all over the place. And then they went to Chicago and they played George Halas, and of course George Halas had seen everything. Mm-hmm. So he widened those defensive ends, and he brought those linemen inside, and he just absolutely shut this offense down. And everybody was wondering, how did you figure out the secret to stopping this offense? And they were so great and all. He said, it's a single wing. And he just did the same thing they did in stopping the single wing, and that stopped a lot of the things that they were doing in San Francisco. So then everybody said, okay, well, that's how you stop it. Do you go back and you see any of these old ways of doing things and incorporate that into today's defenses?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time that we saw a Tony Franklin system team. and I would sit there and watch the passing game and say, okay, this is, because I've always been a big fan of Chris Hatcher's air raid stuff. And this team had just kind of bought into the Tony Franklin system, and I was looking at it going, okay, this is, these are mesh routes. This is a Y stick. I knew the routes from Chris Hatcher's clinics and his videos, and then I watched the running game, and I'm breaking down the running game, and I'm going, okay, this is a buck sweep. This is a wing T. The principles were the same as far as it wasn't a buck sweep, but I just remember watching the running game that they were using and going, this is a wing T. They're in a shotgun, but this is nothing but a wing T. And of course, Lou Johnson, who's down here in Virginia, had the shotgun wing T, and we've seen a ton of that with the shotgun wing T. Whether they call it that or not, it's what it is. We definitely go back and look and say, all right, here's what they're doing. We've got the zone read, and we know how to defend the zone read. And that doesn't mean that we shut it down every time, but we definitely see things where we go, this is a wing T. This is just a single wing. There's nothing new. There really is nothing new in football.
Coach Lou Johnson, a former guest on the program, now coaching at Suffolk. And we hope to have him back on a later date as well. Coach Joe Daniel is my guest. He is the assistant head coach of Prince George High School in Richmond, Virginia. And we'll be talking a little bit of zone blitz next here on Coach's Corner.
Track your entire equipment and clothing inventory in real time with Athletic Equipment Manager. You'll know where it is and who has it. Quickly add or adjust inventory levels. A tag system assigns and tracks each piece. Look up the status of single items or groups of items. Assemble and print reports for each athlete or entire teams, any sport. And it works in single and multi-user mode. Even on your laptop, Athletic Equipment Manager puts you in control. Download it today and try it for free from CompuSports.
I don't know where I'm to begin except to say that you were right. No man is nice.
This segment of Coach's Corner is sponsored by CompuSports, publishers of Athletic Equipment Manager software, the affordable sports inventory software that starts at just $199, available at CompuSports.com. Joe Daniel from Richmond, Virginia is my guest. He's the assistant head coach at Prince George County High School in Richmond. And we've been talking defending the spread, linebackers and safeties and all that. Well, now we're going to move into the zone blitz package. I know a lot of people like to learn more about this. We had a chance to run a very simple variation of it some years ago because I saw Bill Cower and Dom Capers and Dick LeBeau all run versions of this at Kansas City and at New Orleans, and I got a chance to incorporate some of that into our defense while we were running the 46, and we might bring 5, and at that time, the vogue thing to do with the 4-6 was run a 4-2 zone behind it. You got 4 guys in the short zones, you run a cover 2 behind it, and you're bringing 5 people up front. Well, now, it seems like the trend is going a little bit more toward a 3-3, and we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. Coach, what is the risk-reward that you're considering when you're thinking of employing a zone blitz?
The zone blitz has really become a part of what we do, and the risk-reward is, I think, number one, your kids are going to enjoy it. Your kids are really going to enjoy running these. They like blitzing. We used to run, when I first came in, we ran a straight 4-4 stack defense, and they liked blitzing. But, the linebacker went A-gap or he went B-gap. The outside linebacker went outside or inside. It wasn't particularly fancy. They liked blitzing. But when they start doing all these different twists, and the defensive linemen are cutting across space, and they're coming off his hip, and guys are coming untouched sometimes, and we're just kind of creating havoc with it. Part of the risk, which is, there are occasionally open gaps. There are occasionally guys who miss their assignments. It is more complicated. It does take more teaching time, and you do have less guys in coverage. But the risk to me is not nearly as great as the reward of your kids just having fun doing what you do, the possibility of causing a big play, confusing the offensive line, confusing the quarterback, giving them different looks. That's where the reward comes in. Is the big plays there, but just in general with these schemes, they have no idea. The offense has no idea what's coming. I don't care. As an offensive line coach, I know that our guys on paper should be able to pick up everything. I also know that they're 15, 16, 17 years old, and they don't work like they're supposed to work on paper. So the reward is just the havoc that it can cause.
I know that when you consider executing a zone blitz, your zone blitzes really need to be designed to stop whatever it is you're expecting to see. Now, for example, when Kansas City, back during the late 80s and early 90s, were toying around with the zone blitz principle, I'm watching 320-pound nose tackle Dan Saliamua dropping off the line of scrimmage to about 3 to 4 yards off the line of scrimmage. What the heck is he doing? Well, if you look at the play from the end zone shot, and you're playing West Coast offense teams, one of the quick routes that they liked to run was bringing a receiver inside and stopping him about 5 yards deep from where the center was initially lined up. And he shows his numbers to the quarterback, makes himself a target, so the quarterback, he knows he's there, he can dump it off quickly if he needs to. Well, Saliamua was taking that away, and he was a pretty big boy. And it's kind of hard to throw around somebody like that. So I imagine that you're looking at a team, maybe their 3 or 4 most predominant routes that they're running, and some teams don't run the same concept twice in one game, so that could be a little bit difficult. But they have a small number of plays that they like to go to in key situations. And I'm guessing that you're game planning all of this and what blitz to run at one particular time in the game.
Absolutely. And what we're going to look at is, and a lot of people worry because I have an ebook on defending with the zone blitz, and there's 100 different blitzes in there. Well, we're not going to run 100 different blitzes. We're going to carry our base blitzes, which are our Mike Sam and Will blitzes. We're going to run a Mike Sam and Will X, where they're going to cross gaps with a defensive lineman. We have them partnered with one of the defensive linemen. We're going to carry those all the time, but we're going to maybe carry between 1 and 3 exotics. You mentioned America's Fire Zone, where we're going to bring a weak side single-edge blitz. We may bring a double-edge blitz, which is our saw blitz. But it's going to be something that's going to be designed to take away what they do. We've got an inside X blitz, we call it machete, where our Mike linebacker and our strong safety are coming through the A-gaps, and they're crossing. And that blitz comes open probably 75-80% of the time that we run it. One of those two cats is coming open. Well, the problem is we can't run it against a team who plays a sprint-out game. It's a wasted blitzer, bringing it through the A-gap. So we don't carry that blitz that often because we don't see that many straight drop-back passers. So we're definitely designing our blitz package. And I mentioned passing. We also will design our blitz package to stop the run. We carry America's Fire Zone a lot of the times against zone read because that's going to confuse the read for the quarterback, and it's going to get somebody hitting that quarterback in the mouth every time. But we will also play with our coverage package, too. You mentioned the 4 under 2 deep and the 3 under 3 deep. As far as who's going to insert and drop down, we like the 3 under 3 deep because we're going to drop a safety down. And a lot of quarterbacks in high school, they've got a base understanding of hot routes where they'll see that the wheel backer's coming, and they know who's going to be coming into that area as far as receiver routes. What they don't know is that our safety's going to be dropping down on the snap of the ball, coming from 9 down to about 5 or 6. And if you try to throw a little, let's say a slant route to a slot receiver out there, he's probably not coming up with that ball. And either it's going to be tackled very quickly, he's going to get hit very hard, or it's going to be picked off. And that's where the game plan of what are they going to do when we bring this guy, as far as how we insert our coverage. So there's a lot of game plan involved in deciding out of 100 different blitz combinations which 2 or 3 we're going to carry.
I know from your website at football-defense.com, you have a video up there. It's about 9 minutes, 23 seconds, and it's a really good video, and I encourage everybody to go take a look at it on America's Fire Zone Defense. Once again, available at football-defense.com. We'll be right back with Coach Joe Daniel here on Coach's Corner. coaches helping coaches. That is the message behind Jerry Campbell Football. Jerry Campbell Football provides the best quality products that can increase the range of information and understanding of football coaches, players, and fans. You can find great value on the website located at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. Jerry Campbell Football has books and DVDs available, whether it be offense, defense, resume preparation, the kicking game, or PowerPoint training. Jerry Campbell Football has what you need to build your knowledge base. Whether by using a traditional approach to cutting-edge technology, you can enhance your knowledge in nearly any area. You can also join in with coaches from all over the country at the interactive message forum at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. That's www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. This segment of Coach's Corner is brought to you by Jerry Campbell Football. Check out Coach Campbell's book, Combining the Hybrid Gun, Pistol, and Under Center Offense at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. This segment is sponsored by Jerry Campbell Football. Coaches helping coaches at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. Joe Daniel is my guest from Richmond, Virginia. He is the assistant head coach at Prince George High School in Richmond, Virginia. He also coaches linebackers and offensive line. A lot of the things that we see on Saturday and Sunday, we see a lot of different teams running different kinds of blitzes, and of course the college and the professional teams, they have a lot more time to try to work on these particular maneuvers than the high school ranks do. Coach, how do you take advantage of the time that you have to insert these blitzes during your individual periods and during your team periods?
Well, I think that we try to build our blitzes off of one another to where we will only run maybe 3 or 4, and this is another idea I mentioned before with the quarters, and Coach Shap Boyd, who's at Muskingum, kind of talked to him about this patterns concept. There's only a few blitz patterns that you can run, A and B gap, double A gap, A and C gap, C and D. But you can run a lot of different players through those patterns. Once the players understand a few of our blitzes, then they kind of understand where it's going, and you just have to tell them which players are going there. So, for example, I mentioned that we have our double A gap blitz with going to be our Mike and our strong safety. Well, that starts, we teach the Mike and the Sam to run that blitz. And then we just tell the Sam and the strong safety to switch responsibilities. Now, Sam is the low hole dropper, and the strong safety is creeping up and going through the A gap. So it's not a new blitz. And to everybody else, we name them with a similar name. We call those MASH and Machete. Occasionally we'll have a smart kid who tells us that Machete has a C in it, but it's supposed to be an S for for the Sam or the strong safety. But, it sounds right. And so to everybody else, MASH and Machete are the exact same blitz. We use a longer word if we want to bring the safety. The shorter word, MASH, is going to be the Mike and the Sam. Machete is going to be the safety getting involved in it. So we don't have a ton of different blitzes, but we're still not going to run both of those in a game. Either we want to bring the Sam or we want to bring the strong safety. So we try to keep it simple. Gosh, there's so many things that you can do, and you see them on Saturday and Sunday. There's just this huge plethora of fronts and stunts and coverages and blitzes that you can run. And at our level, with the amount of time that we have, we just have to pick out a couple and focus in on those.
I know it's really difficult for coaches because they look at this, I want to run this, and yeah, this would be cool, and yeah, this would really look good, and yeah, I love this, and you just can't teach all those.
No, you can't. In other areas of business, they talk about paralysis by analysis, that you never get anything done because you're sitting there trying to decide what to do. I think that sometimes in coaching, rather than paralysis by analysis, we're going the opposite way. We don't analyze anything. We just run it all. And it's the total opposite of what you want to do. If your kids don't understand what you're doing, if you can't teach to them, it doesn't matter how cool it looks on the napkin. We run a simplistic coverage, even though our coverage sounds very complex. And this is what I find a lot with football, is that things that may sound complex at first probably you can just run that one thing. For example, our quarters coverage sounds complex because there's 3 or 4 checks that will carry into a game. But once they get those 3 or 4 checks, we never have to do anything with our coverage again. It's done. We'll run a little cover 3, which is a spot drop, very simple. We'll run a little, and then we'll run our fire zone blitz, and that's it. We don't have to do anything else. We don't have to make decisions. We don't have to make game plan changes. So when you find the things that you need to do, pick out 1 or 2 things that you need to do well and do them. And even though there may be a different front or a different blitz that would put you in a slightly better position, if it just confuses your kids, you can't do it. You have to let it go.
I know you had brought up your machete blitz as far as the double A gap blitz, and one of the things that we like to do is when we put 3-4 front up there, we take that nose tackle and cross the face of the strong guard. And what he's doing, he's basically slanting away from the center, trying to occupy the B gap of the tight end side of the formation, and the Mike linebacker is trying to shoot the weak side A gap. And why are we trying to do that? We're trying to get the split area protection of the offensive line to kind of divide out and chase ghosts. Because then you've got that Tom linebacker, who in our system was the weak side inside linebacker. He can come straight up the middle. Usually the Mike linebacker would be picked up by a running back who's trying to fill that middle while the offensive line is splitting and trying to carry zone and push everything outside. While that Tom linebacker should have a clean alley right into the quarterback's face. And we called that a Mickey blitz because the Mike is coming and we're turning that like a key. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to disrupt that particular pattern. And a lot of guys were doing that back then. And they were trying to area block and trying to gap one direction and the running back coming off the other one. You could always bring 1 or 2 or maybe both of your outside linebackers and get one of them to get that physical mismatch. And so a lot of people wonder, well, why are they running this? And what do you see that you're trying to run a zone blitz against? And that was some of the things that we used to do and why we used to do them. I know that Pittsburgh during the 90s, when they went to the Super Bowl and they went to all those AFC championship games, they were running a gap stack blitz to the strong side. They were bringing the Sam linebacker, the strong side inside linebacker, the Michael linebacker, and the defensive end, and just trying to gap all that mess up because of the strong side running games that people were trying to run. So there's different reasons to run different blitzes. So for folks who maybe are not familiar with the zone blitz, that's why they're doing some of the things that they're doing.
Yeah, and we have certain blitzes that we're going to use for the zone read. There's certain, we mentioned America's Fire Zone. We also have a tag off that where we bring the free safety instead of the will linebacker. We're going to use that against the zone read because it's going to change up the read for the quarterback off the weak side, and it's going to get a better athlete in the face of that quarterback, and it's going to really just kind of muck things up for him. We're also going to, like I said, if we've got a pocket pass, we're going to bring the middle blitz, and you talked about the protection. Most teams are going to be man to one side, zone to the other. We're going to get into that split protection. We want to find out who the back's going to block, and that's one of the things we haven't talked much about. And you hit on it there. Who's the back going to be responsible for? Because that's the guy that we want to get going. We don't try to beat anybody. We're not trying to come unblocked. It happens, but who's the back going to have to get? Because that's where your money's going to be made. Because there's nobody on our defense who should be able to beat a back who spends 5 minutes a day maybe working on his pass protection, and even then he's kind of half-heartedly into it, wondering when they're going to give him the football again. That's the guy we want to go after. We see rollout teams, sprint out teams. We want to get into the face of the quarterback, so we're going to bring a single edge from that, the side that we see the rollout coming from, whether it's the field or some sort of surface call, whatever it may be. You're definitely looking for how can you attack these teams and put them in a bind where they have to get away from their top 1 or 2 running plays, top passing plays. We want to get them to where they're on play, 4 or 5 in the playbook, not 1, 2, and 3.
Coach Joe Daniel from Richmond, Virginia is my guest, and we'll be talking a little bit more about coverage behind the blitz here in our next segment. You're listening to Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network.
Improve your game planning this season with Easy Scout XP Plus by CompuSports. This affordable football scouting software makes it easy and fun to collect, organize, and analyze your scouting data. With Easy Scout XP Plus, your computer works hard so you can work smart. Easy Scout XP Plus reveals offensive and defensive tendencies, providing information that enables you to create better game plans in less time than using pencil and paper. With Easy Scout XP Plus, you will save time. Record scouting information using your terminology. You can even customize it so it works the way you want it to. Easy Scout XP Plus, proven for more than 25 years, from high school to the pros. And now the newest version works on more types of portable computers with lots of user-friendly tools and features. Now you and your staff can make the game planning process more efficient and gain a competitive edge. Get started on your next winning season. Get your copy of CompuSports Easy Scout XP Plus today.
Been having a great conversation with Joe Daniel, Richmond, Virginia at Prince George County High School, and we've been talking defending the spread, turned that over into the zone blitz, and for those of you folks who have not seen the video up there at football-defense.com, he's got a number of them up there, but the one that you really want to look for as far as the topic of this conversation is America's Fire Zone Defense, and it's about 9 minutes, 23 seconds long, but it is a wonderful video. Coach Daniels does a very good job on it. Amongst a number of the videos that he has up there. Coach, let's talk about coverages for a little bit. As we've talked about earlier, there's a number of things. You have to have a target for why you want to do some of the things that you want to do, and coverages are no different. You've already established what you want to do up front as far as who you want to blitz, but now who do you want to drop off? How do you want that secondary coverage structure to work? Tell us a little bit, how do you approach that?
Primarily, we're going to be a 3 under, 3 deep zone blitz team, which means we're going to have the 3 underneath zones. We're going to have the 2 corners always dropping to the deep thirds, and one of the safeties who roll into a deep third. We'll do a little bit. Obviously, we're going to bring a cowboy, which is our weak side corner blitzing. We'll have to change the coverage up a little bit and bring another safety over that deep third. But most of the time, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a simple rule where our safety who's coming down. So the 2 corners are always dropping off to deep thirds, and generally they're just in man coverage over top of the number 1 receiver. Rarely are they going to do anything other than that. We've got the 1 safety deep middle, who's the deep help. He's the last guy there. The safety who's coming down is going to be to the blitz side. So if we're running, for example, if we're running America's Fire Zone, which is our wham blitz, we're running our wham blitz with the weak side blitz, and so the free safety is on the weak side with the will. The will's going to make a smoke call, which means he just raises his arm up in the air, and we yell, smoke, smoke, smoke. And that just tells the safety behind him, okay, the blitz is coming from this side, so I'm the one that should be rolling down. He makes an I'm gone call to the other safety, so the other safety knows I've got the deep third. We're going to bring that safety down, and the reason for that, and that's our base and where we start, the reason for that is that if that will linebacker is coming, he's usually going to have to show it in order to get there on time. Our guys aren't blazing speed. We're not going to bring a lot of delayed blitzes. We'll bring it here and there, but our will's going to walk up a little, and he's going to they're going to know he's going to blitz. Obviously, if they listen to this and they see him raise their hand up in the air and yell smoke, 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 they're going to know he's coming. But we don't care because we want that quarterback to be thinking, all right, I'm going to throw where he's leaving, if that's what he wants to do. And so we're going to bring that safety down to replace where he left. And the idea being, if he's trying to key off of that will linebacker is gone, he thinks that's where the hole's opening up, there's a safety stepping into the picture. So the communication on the field, we don't have to memorize the play. We call all of our blitzes by names that they can remember. For example, if we run a smash blitz, it's going to be the Sam and the Mike, the S and the M there. That also tells the strong safety, it starts with an S, that's strong. I'm going to roll down to the strong side flat. And he's going to roll over top of number 2, looking for number 2 to be coming into him. And depending on what they're going to do, we may tell him to just go ahead and straight collision number 2. Sometimes we'll get teams throwing uncovered there. If the outside linebacker is walking in, they're going to see that as an uncovered. And as they throw the ball, we're coming down the field to that area. So we're going to design that 303 deep in order to get our safeties in the best position. We're going to drop defensive ends as much as possible. We don't drop the nose very often. Did it a lot one year when we had a really quick, we mentioned having those quick nose guards, and we had a really, really super quick nose who actually ended up playing safety for us later. We would drop him, but he'd get the ball. They wouldn't expect anybody to be in the middle of the field. We would drop him just straight back against some routes, big routes and things like that would get in his hands. But most of the time, we're going to drop our defensive ends to weak side flat. We don't want anything out of them but to step, ensure that they're getting a pass set by the tackle, and then just get on their horse getting out. We sprint their eyes to number 2. They find the number 2 receiver, the most dangerous receiver, and they're just sprinting to him, getting as deep as they can as fast as possible. We don't teach a lot of technique on that.
I know I've watched a number of these teams run a 3-3 zone behind a blitz of whatever variety they're running, and usually your curl defender, he's going to stay right there unless he's got somebody threatening the flat. But you don't want him to widen out unless somebody's threatening the flat. So in the event that you do have a run or you have a draw or maybe the quarterback's bailing and he's trying to come up inside, then you've got some bodies that you can bring up in there.
Yeah, we're not going to be weak on the run in the zone blitz. We need zone blitz to stop the run, too. And I think that's a misconception that people have, is that you only blitz to stop the pass, to get sacked. That's not at all the case. We tell our kids, if you are a run-first player, which 9 of the guys on our field are run-first players. Our 2 safeties are run-first players, and our seven guys up front are run-first. It doesn't matter if we're running the most exotic, fancy zone blitz in the world. You're a run-first player. And so they're going to play to the run, and they're going to have gap responsibilities, and we're going to be relatively gap sound. And even if we drop off, even if they get a pass read, they're not running out, like you said, they're not sprinting out to the flats. They're looking to get generally to where number 2 is. If number 2 goes flat, they're looking for one to come out to come into them. And we tell them we'll rally to the flats late. That 5-yard ball in the flats we're going to live with. That's a long throw, especially with people in your face.
Coach Joe Daniel has been my guest today, the assistant head coach, also the linebacker and O-line coach at Prince George County High School in Richmond, Virginia. Coach, it's been great to have you on here. I also want to plug your website again. Football-defense.com has a lot of great articles and a lot of great material up there. And, Coach, we want to extend the invitation to have you back.
Oh, absolutely. This has been great. I've really enjoyed it. And I'd like to just talk football as much as we can.
Well, we'll bring you back on and we'll talk about something, even if it's wrong.
It's all right. Nothing's wrong. It's just how you coach it.
Coach, once again, thank you for coming on here.
Thank you very much for having me.
For the rest of you folks, we'll have some final thoughts after this. A big thank you to Coach Joe Daniels for taking the time out to come on to the show and educating me into some of the different styles of zone blitz that they run up there in Virginia and how you can use that to your advantage.
Next on Coach's Corner.
Next week we'll be in Candler, North Carolina. We'll be talking the evolution of run-and-shoot football, and we'll get into theory and development as well, and how you can start installing portions of it or the whole thing in your program. And my guest will be Coach Manny Matsakis from Inca High School out there in Candler. Coach's Corner is an Abundant Harvest production here on the CompuSports Radio Network. I'm John Anderson, and make sure you join us next week in Candler. Road trip!